Welcome to my video teaching you how to make a longbow stave and showing you the things you're going to need to consider from the woods and how to put it all together. So a typical longbow made into a laminate form comprises of 3 different types of wood. Generally the back of the bow will be hickory, then it'll have what we'd describe as a core. On this one it's purple heart, and then the belly of the bow is lemon wood. You can see this bow is what I describe as deflexed, meaning that it's bent in the opposite direction it's going to bend. So when this bow is built, it's going to bend through that way. The deflex helps it to stop following the string when it's built. So when setting out, looking for, when you're setting out and you're actually considering the woods, firstly the hickory, which is the back of the bow, is brought in a quarter sawn form. And what that means is that when you buy the billet, you've got, we're going to be slicing that through and through and through, and so the face that's at the back of the bow, you can see the rings travelling down the tree. That's the only piece of wood that I need to consider the direction of the grain on, in reference to the bow breaking. But the other thing that crops up is you need to consider the grain throughout in terms of what it's likely to do when you cut it. Because most pieces of wood, particularly some of these hardwoods, have something called tension in it, and the tension is a big problem if you're trying to make a straight bow and when you cut it, it decides it's going to warp. That can actually cost you the whole piece of wood. So it needs great consideration and looking, and it's almost a science and magic really, because you've got to decide what this piece of wood's going to do. You can get some clues. And here's a big clue. What we've got is we've got an exaggerated dip and an angle which is pushing the grain back this way, and then it swirls around and goes back that way. Believe it or not, this is a premium piece of Osage, very expensive piece of wood, and you'd like to think, well, shouldn't the grain be straight? It's a natural material. I'm just glad there's not a woodworm or a knot sitting in the middle of it. That's what makes it premium. So, I'm looking at the angle of the rings on the end. I'm looking at that depression, and I figure that when I cut this piece of wood, if I try and cut a straight line through here and then cut slivers off of that, what they're going to do is they're going to belly in, and they're going to take persuasion from this grain dip. With that in mind, what I wouldn't want to do is I wouldn't want to take this section as the width of the bow, because that's going to carry the bow out of line. That's the way I have to think through the wood. The same will even come with purple heart here, and this particular piece of purple heart looks like it's got dead straight grain, but it hasn't. It just swings down a bit here, so if that carries the bow off on this end, therein lies the problem. It's not always the end of the piece of wood if it does bend out of shape, because then if it does do that, what you should really do is you should measure the pressure of its tension and try and match it with other pieces of wood and put the tension back in. So when you're making a bow stave, it can get really complicated, or you can just be happy with a slightly bent bow. So basically, I'm going to start running some of this wood through the bandsaw at the thicknesses I want, and then I'm going to show you how they're stuck together and how the deflex goes in. So we'll start off by running the hickory through at about 4 millimeters in thickness. of the osage on the market nowadays is from Hungary, and it's not as bright as this. The grains aren't as close, and it's not a patch on its quality. Right, okay. It's a bit of a head scratcher now. I've got to try and make that next decision. If my bows are 1.25 inches broad, then it'd be nice if that was big enough to take that. So on this section that's showing me I haven't got enough to get 2 bows out of, so it's quite a lot of waste when you think of 1.25 inches. But it's all about the tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it 1.25 inches down this way, and or just a bit more than that to take up for some of the waviness of the cut that I've just run, and then we'll see what that piece comes off as, to see what shape it becomes. Now we've got our 3 timbers, what we're going to do is prepare them for the laminating and take any of the saw marks away. Because we're gluing them together, we want to have a nice rough key on the surfaces by the time I've finished. And so it's a bit industrial, but I'm using a 60 grit belt sander for that process. But it's skill with hand-eye coordination to make sure that when you use this you manage it right. So basically I get over the top of these, so I'll keep this flat. So we're going to use a glue. I use Cascamite. There are other glue products on the market that could do the job as well, but I've used this for the last 30 years and I know its performance, so we're all good with that. It's a bit of an art to mixing. If we put the Cascamite in first and the water on top, we're going to be there all day trying to get the lumps out. So what we're going to do is, I'm doing an approximation of 1 part glue, 1 part water, and then 2 parts glue. Oops. And we don't want it getting airborne either. So put all the glue in that you're going to need at once. So that when you stir it up, it comes like it turns into a great big globule. It's all about lump reduction. This glue. It stays like powder, then all of a sudden it goes really thick, and then it starts to smooth down and puree down. And that's coming out to a nice creamy consistency. This is where things get really messy, so on with the gloves. Lift up that last laminate and pop it onto the top of that. Just secure these ends together. And then this end too. And so this is a secret recipe. Basically this is a piece of car in a tube which will cut into a 2-inch strip, about 20 foot long. And pick up our longbow and start in the middle, fold that over, begin to compress this together. You have to pull, turn and lock with the thumb. Grab the bow, pull, turn, lock with the thumb. Pull, turn, lock with the thumb. You always know when you're getting somewhere near the end, because your hands and your arms are really starting to remind you that you're on them. Good. So at this stage the bow stave is straight, and we want to put a negative memory in it to create that deflex. And that's quite simply done by holding it mid-limb and just pushing down. Turn it round. That one seems to go a bit further. Some of the bow staves I've made have been used in competitions for trying to break world records, and when people ask for a stave to do that kind of stuff, I deflex them really hard so their rebound is extreme, and also I taper the cores so you get a really good action out of the bow. But anyway, I think that is ready for storage, and just don't forget, it cannot freeze. Thanks for watching this video, and if you need to either buy any wood for the material, you can do that from my website, or we supply longbow staves and kits. Check in next week. See you soon.